you should never let the person have doubts about the quality of the product. So if you're not sure about something, you say, I'm not sure, it's not my specialty. Don't voice an opinion, you devalue yourself, or don't produce anything that devalues your product.
Han förutsåg den globala finanskrisen och lärde oss om svarta svanar och vikten av att vara anti-fragile. Jag är här med Nassim Taleb och vi ska prata om hans nya bok som heter Skin in the Game, vikten av delad risk. Nassim Taleb, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I'm going to jump straight in. I want to ask you, why should one never hire a well-dressed trader?
Okay. No, that was in... I wrote that in Dynamic Hedging 21 years ago in my first book, which is technical, textbook. And later on, I figured out the idea with a metaphor of when you have two people of the same rank professionally, one of them looks the part and the other does not. The one who doesn't look the part must have more skills.
Why?
Because in an environment where you have skin in the game, the cosmetic doesn't matter much. So for example, the example I give that of the surgeon, you have a surgeon who looks like a surgeon, and the other one looks like a butcher. The surgeon looks refined, the other one looks rough, coarse. Now, who is more likely to be a better surgeon? If they're the same rank in the hospital, and you have both options are presented as being equivalent, you should take the one who doesn't look like a surgeon, because that person had to fight a lot to reach that level. So this is a financial conversation.
Yes.
Let's translate it into finance. If you read an investment proposal that looks like an investment proposal, don't invest. Odds are a business plan or a proposal or term sheet, someone is taking advantage of you. Because if it's narrated in a crisp way, odds are it's not going to work.
Right, okay. So Skin in the Game, the title of this book. So
yes.
Often before your book, when people talked about skin in the game, that often meant incentives, right?
Yes.
I have an incentive and I have skin in the game, so I'm going to work harder to make this work.
Yes.
That's not your understanding of the term.
Yes. So in finance, basically, is having something to lose in case something goes wrong, and it was basically the reverse of incentive, or being exposed. For example, in finance, if people who lose money go bust and leave the system, which happens, there's some kind of filtering in investment management, then necessarily, it may not be fair, but still, there's a filtering. So those who stay have a higher quality on balance. Not always, you can be fooled by randomness, but in general, than those who have left the pool. And of course, some people may game the system, to look good, but everything else being adjusted. So this is the idea of skin in the game. As risk management, that's the only way that works, because people can always hide risk, something we've known for 4,000 years, from Hammurabi 3,800 years ago, that people can always hide risk from you. So when you invest in a fund and the owner or the managers of the fund have most of their net worth in it, more than 50% of the net worth in it, in proportion to the net worth, they're going to suffer 50, 60 times more than you. That's skin in the game. That's the best risk management.
And that's why hedge funds are better than banks.
Hedge funds are better than other forms of investment because they're independent small units that have skin in the game. And of course, you have bankruptcies and failures of hedge fund, and these are periodic, and they clean up the system, just like you have failures in the restaurant business. You see, probably equivalent.
So you also define rationality in this book as rationality is what makes something survive.
Exactly. I mean, if something doesn't make sense to you, but works, it's vastly better than something that makes sense to you that doesn't work. And people get it in the real world. Academics don't get it. they don't get, hey, well, it makes sense. Well, if it works in theory, it doesn't work in practice, it doesn't count. So you have to explain to academics that in theory, there's no difference between academia and the real world. In practice, there is. You see?
What's the definition of a bullshit vendor? Because that's an important terminology of the book.
It's someone who's full of hot air. I mean, let me give examples. It's probably easier to document a good BS vendor. A good French politician would be a candidate. Paul Krugman. Okay, the economist Paul Krugman would be a perfect one. Richard Thaler, the economists to whom you grant, most of them got your medal. They are good bullshit vendors. And let me tell you who's a non-bullshit vendor, is someone who has something on the line. You see, when something goes wrong, he or she may lose money. So the idea is that unless there is something constraining you, bring you in contact with reality if you're wrong, so you exit the gene pool, you can be a BS vendor. Now, to give you an idea why the hedge fund world still works very well, we had a bunch of Nobel Prize winners come to the hedge fund world. Okay, last one is long-term capital management that went bust in '98. Well, these guys left the pool, so the system functions, is well functioning.
They went bust.
Exactly. You have sometimes BS vendors in corporate America and definitely corporate Europe. These people often are, they're like actors. They game the corporate. I mean, they don't know what's going on, but at the top, they don't have skills. You have more skills, evidence of skills at the level of the driver, the company driver, than you do as a manager. They ride something. They can wrap a good narrative, and they don't have skin in the game in the sense that although they get the incentive, they don't have disincentive if something goes wrong. So net, that community has made a lot of money.
How does one protect oneself against these bullshit vendors?
It's very easy. Don't ask someone what he or she thinks, like Krugman or something. Ask him to invest.
Okay, what's in your portfolio?
What's in your portfolio? If you don't have an exposure, thanks. And it has to be large enough to be harmful in case the bad thing happens.
Why is honor, or why should honor be such an important concept in the economy?
Well, I'm trying. It's not. It has to be concept in the economy. It has to be concept in everything. But in I don't know if you realize in commercial transactions, you only want to deal with people who don't transfer risk to others. Otherwise, the system can't function. And that was from the days of Cicero. There have been debates on what a person should reveal to you in a commercial transaction and what a person should not. You got to realize that, unlike academia, the world of business is highly collaborative. So, given that it's collaborative, it's a non-zero-sum gain. And if it's collaborative, it means I do not want to do transactions with you. They're not independent transactions. They're a series of transactions. And it's effectively in trading, they're sort of forcing ethical rule like my word is my bond. You see, it's remarkable how you see in real estate, in Aleppo or in central London among the Ashkenazis or among the traders, sold, they do a transaction verbally, and then the lawyers take care of the details. But they're committed. The minute they said, they shook hands, it's committed. So, and that's very important because in Anti-Fragile, I think, towards the end of Anti-Fragile, I explained that a handshake with Mayor Lansky, who was a mafioso, a big mobster, for a lot of people was vastly more robust than a contract, was vetted by lawyers, because they can always mess with your contract, but someone who has self-respect will never go back on an agreement.
So the market economy cannot work without honor, and honor is defined as
honor your commitments, and don't nickel and dime people, but also don't try to have transaction with people transferring too much risk to them.
Yes, so that's the definition of honor, to not transfer risk towards others.
At least not in hidden ways. You can do it. Bankers have done it, transfer risk to Japanese investors in the 90s, stuff like that, and then rapidly you realize you cannot do business out of it. You can only run a business with something that has some kind of long-term relationship and trust. Let me explain. It's very simple. You cannot debase a currency. Debase a currency is like keep adding crap stuff inside a currency, so progressively it loses its value. And the market system sometimes does that. But when you deal with an artisan, you buy a product in Italy from an artisan, a family that's been operating for 200 years, they make sure that you will never have doubts about you may not like maybe the aesthetics of it, but you never have doubts about the quality of the product. And you always have to work that way. So when you write books, when you do anything, you should never let the person have doubts about the quality of the product. So if you're not sure about something, you say, I'm not sure, it's not my specialty. Don't voice an opinion, you devalue yourself, or don't produce anything that devalues your product. Likewise, do not hide stuff. Like, for example, you start offering people gold, and then you start adding other metals to it. You can do that a couple of times, and then you've destroyed your reputation and the system, because the system start pricing that. So traditionally, debasing the currency is what I call in my books cheapest to deliver. Don't give people the cheapest to deliver. Give a product that you think in the long run will sustain a normal business relationship with people. So when I was a market maker, people would come to me because I tried to be reliable, and I was taught by market makers to be reliable, not the best, not the worst, but always there, and never have huge margins, but never have too tight margins. You see, and it's remarkable how it works, because then if you're reliable, people come back to you. So you got to do business with someone as if you will do that for generations.
Right.
As a principle, and it works. And that converges to a sense of honor you have while dealing with anyone.
But it's gotten worse. I mean, that's the narrative I take out from your book. I mean, the concept of skin in the game is old, is as old as time. It's necessary, it's been around, but it's not there enough anymore.
It's coming back. Okay, in the past, of course, they used to hang bankers. So people had skin in the game.
Yes,
in banking.
literally.
Yeah, they'd be beheaded, often, in public square. And then progressively, we had limited liability. Adam Smith did not like it. He knew it was going to be gamed. But still, I don't mind limited liability, but it's got to be limited but substantial. Not limited but small or almost non-existent. So now people are starting to think of clawing back bonuses, some form, but still not enough. And then sometimes forcing people to invest. You want to work here, you got to invest.
Right.
Okay, and that sort of puts skin in the game. But let's go back to society as a whole. 99% of the people you see in the street are calibrated. They don't take risk from others, they don't transfer risk to others. Okay?
So they're neutral.
They're neutral, they're calibrated. Some people transfer risk to others, typically bureaucrats, Thomas Friedman of the New York Times, people like that. They cause wars and they don't pay for it. They transfer risk. And a lot of people are victims, all right? But so in general, we have to focus on those who transfer risk to others. And then, of course, there's a class of saints who take risk from others, all right? Such, that's the way they want to be, heroes. So people have the notion of, the present notion of heroism. There's a fellow who took a bullet for someone, a French person recently, and he was a big hero in France because people understand right away, taking risks, particularly on behalf of others, and dying, that death is the most glorious thing.
So entrepreneurs are the classic risk takers. We tend to think about them, but you write in the book that they also nowadays often try to hide risk or transfer risk to others. How do they do that?
There are two classes of entrepreneurs. Someone who starts a company because they love starting a company, say Steve Jobs when he started, or all these other people, the famous people. And then those who start companies to sell them, okay? And without even running them. They look good and then they sell them to Uber or sell them to someone else. The second category is not honorable in my mind because they're gaming the system. And eventually, I remember a book by Michael Lewis about a fellow. and later on who started Netscape or something, and then he kept getting rich by creating and selling companies that would go out of business, but he would get rich, and of course I think he couldn't do it anymore. So you have these categories. So two classes of entrepreneurs: the real entrepreneurs and those who are playing the game. So we distinguish between them. Like we must distinguish between the entrepreneur and the CEO, cosmetic CEO, MBA from Wharton, that kind of stuff.
So many of our viewers, I'm sure, sort of know you or know the barbell strategy of investment. There's even
Yes.
a barbell here on the cover of this
Yes.
book, which sort of is the idea that to protect yourself from black swan.
Okay. I mean, my idea of barbell is not so much a recipe as a framework in risk-taking, that a linear combination of high risk and no risk is medium risk, is vastly more robust than just investing in medium risk.
Right, so I should put 90%.
Well, I mean, you put a high segment of your funds in no-risk securities, 10% in high risk, it outperforms, or at least is more robust than putting 100% in medium risk. So the fund separation method is much more powerful.
Because of black swan events?
Because the medium risk can go to zero. We have no idea how to price risk. But zero risk, we understand what it is. Inflation protected something. And high risk, we know what it is. You're never going to be fooled by high risk. You can be fooled by medium risk.
So behavioral economics is something that you're not very keen on.
Yes, to
And
me
you
it's
talk about-
junk.
You talk about it in this book. And so if I understand your critique, it has a lot to do with the fact that basically group behavior can't be derived from
Yeah,
looking
that's
at
one of them.
individual behavior.
Okay, so one is scaling, the other is dynamics. Scaling, in other words, if you study the behavior of every individual, will not explain the market. Why? It cannot explain, because the market is not a sum of individuals, but there are minority rules, asymmetries that, like for example, market that worth 30 trillion can drop 1%. That's 1%. That's 300 billion. I mean, in valuation, based on a big order, that's 50 billion. And that has happened in examples I document. So it's very nonlinear. Understanding individual doesn't help you understand markets. That's the first one. The second problem with behavioral economics is they have the illusion that you take a risk once per lifetime. They look at risk return. In fact, it's a sequence. Say you smoke. Do you smoke?
No.
You don't smoke. Okay. But would it be rational to smoke one cigarette if I told you the risk of one cigarette is tiny compared to the enjoyment you may have? Are we rational? No.
No?
No. This is why, because you have to think of, if you enjoy it, you're going to do it again.
Yes, and that's what this
There you
is,
go.
yeah.
So under repetition, and I've shown that no individual will ever get the market return because you do not have the same risk profile. You can never stay constant, and you will vary your portfolio, and you may be forced to reduce. A lot of people divorce, a lot of people have events, and so you cannot get the market return. The only strategy that can allow you to get the market return is a Kelly criterion method, which is a specific strategy. Other than that, you will never get the market return.
So you've also written that one is only one is rich only when the money you refuse tastes better than the money you accept.
Exactly.
What does that mean?
Okay. In other words, you will never be rich if instead of you're going on a cruise, and then someone offers you a huge amount of money to do something. If you cancel your cruise to do that, then you're not rich.
Right.
So a lot of rich people are not rich, and a lot of more modest people are rich.
And you also talk about the risk of sort of when you're rich, making your life too complex.
Yeah, it's invariable that people who get rich make their life complicated. So they go to a restaurant, have complicated meals, and nouveau So it looks fancy, but in fact, experimental and expensive. And then you start writing private jets rather than have the warmth of other people in a nice terminal. So there are a lot of aspects of these lives of rich people. But first of all, you buy a big mansion, and these mansions, these 15-bedroom mansions, look like a morgue, when they're empty.
Especially in America, yes.
Yeah, but what happened? They're not built. The problem is these in the past were full of maids and people and courtiers and second cousins and stuff. So they're not made to be empty. So people don't understand the preferences very well, and it's better to understand your preferences than be rich.
What does it mean to have soul in the game?
Is having an artisan has soul in the game. The best expression is a Greek word called meraki, and it means you're not doing something for the enjoyment, something even beyond. Is you love what you're doing. So I'm not a fan of Ayn Rand, but at some point, I remember a sentence in Ayn Rand where she said, "People hate you if you love what you're doing." That's sort of soul in the game. So you're doing something, but you have a profound love of it. And it's remarkable. You notice that if I enjoy my writing, people will enjoy reading it. But then I have to make sure there's nothing I don't like about my writing. So it has to do with pure passion. And to do that, you have to be disciplined about your writing. In other words, I don't write emails. I don't read emails because it debases your writing. Your writing has to be limited.
You don't write emails at all?
I mean, I try to have half a sentence emails, and even if at the expense of being rude, because people send you 22-page emails expecting 22-page answers, and I'm not in the business of writing emails. I write books, and usually the questions addressed in emails are present in my book. But I noticed that those, if you write a lot of emails, it's not enjoyable. You debase your writing, so there's no more of this passion of writing. The same with anything. If you do something you don't like, it will sort of corrupt your personality. So you got to always be doing something you really want and enjoy. Soul in the game is like, for example, the example of soul in the game I gave is once with what's his name? Cabinet makers.
Sorry?
With the guy from Apple, Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs?
Steve Jobs, like cabinet makers, when they make cabinets, there's a visible and the hidden part. The hidden part they care about as much as the visible.
Yes.
That's all in the game.
The inside of the computer has to be as
Yeah,
beautiful
and for
as the
him, it
outside.
has to be as attractive inside,
Yes.
although you have no business opening it.
Yeah.
For him, that was his soul in the game. And this is why we have this. It's working beautifully. It's still working 10 years after his disappearance.
And people respond to products made with soul in the game because
And
that's just human.
exactly. But both parties are happy when there's soul in the game: the artisan and the consumer. So, and then you have to write books that way, have soul into what you're doing. And I can tell now, it's an instinct if someone has, any kind of the second order commitment to what they're doing.
And you
So-
just tell that instinctively.
Instinctively. If you can tell in Japan how when they want to serve you water, how they have this ceremonial, and you realize they train themselves to do it better. So even serving you a glass of water, they try to have, that's in Japan, the Japanese have the sense of details and pride into what they're doing. And they do it that's all in the game.
So you've criticized sort of unfettered globalization before in The Black Swan, I think, and you sort of come back to it a bit in this book because to protect soul in the game, we might need to be a bit protectionist in the economy.
Yeah, you have to protect yourself from winner-take-all effects because they are brutal, they are unfair, and they cost you something in the long run. So, but not too much. Also, I can easily justify that you have a small town, Switzerland, and it's so nice that you're going to have people from Saudi Arabia buying big mansions in there, and then people are going to be corrupted. by a lot of money, and your children will be priced out of the market. So it is conceivable that it's unacceptable to say, okay, we're not going to sell to foreigners, you see. So some protectionism makes sense if it helps you protect yourself from that winner-take-all effect, particularly when you have a nice place like Switzerland. And Switzerland, in the past, they used to have that rule. The apartments, they could only sell to nationals. People committed to the place, so they don't have rich foreigners buy without having any commitment to the place.
And also, if I understand you correctly, protect people want to maybe make their own shoes, right?
Exactly.
And there's a value in that, and they prefer that from sort of being able to buy really cheap flat screen TVs from China, and we need to take this into account when we sort of design economic policy.
Exactly. If you identify as a shoemaker in Pittsburgh, and now under globalization, it's better to let the Chinese make the shoes, and you do something else, but the standards of living would rise and would buy cheaper product from China overall. So, okay, you lost your identity as a shoemaker. You lost your soul, you see, by transferring things to others in return for some compensation. It's very dangerous.
And lastly, why is love not possible without sacrifice?
Nothing exists without sacrifice. Because if you cannot have things for free, otherwise it would be like in a movie. If you don't have anything to lose, this is why I think you had an engagement ring when you got engaged. Okay, so you'd rather have that than an I love you. You'd like to have both, but between this and I love you, this has more value.
Because it costs him money.
Because it has to cost, it's in proportion to the income of the fellow.
Yeah.
It's the same concept with worshiping gods. Gods don't like cheap signaling.
No?
No, they want commitment.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for inviting me. Thanks. Thank you.